Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the 28th International Conference on Learning in Krókow, Poland. I'm Bradley Wilson from Midwestern State University, presenting virtually from Wichita Falls, Texas. Today, I'm here to discuss a research project that I've been working on for the last 2 years, bringing the newsroom to the classroom. First, it's important to begin with a little discussion just to remind us of what learning is. Learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. This research project focuses on the experience. Experiential learning is a significant component to building the knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed to be effective. Again, focusing on the experiential learning, the hands-on component, not the theory, not just the knowledge, but moving from knowledge through the application and the synthesis and evaluation, the experience. According to the National Research Council, learning to teach science, mathematics, and technology effectively very much depends on teachers mastering the content of these disciplines and having opportunities to practice their pedagogical content knowledge within school environments. And I would argue that the same is true for the liberal arts disciplines, including the one I choose to study, mass communication. For journalism teachers and advisors, student media advisors who advise student newspapers, yearbooks, broadcasts, websites, social media, learning to teach these programs very much depends on teachers mastering the content of these disciplines. It's very hard to teach Twitter without understanding Twitter. It's very hard to teach broadcast if you don't at least understand the basic components of how to put a newscast together. So again, I focus on the experience. Kurt Lewin's experiential learning model focuses on the experience. I choose to put the concrete experience at the top. The concrete experience, doing or having an experience, leads to active experimentation, trying out what you have learned. That leads to abstract conceptualization, learning from the experience. Then you reflect on the observation. Then you go right back to having more concrete experiences. It's a big circle. But the use of this model didn't just stop there. David Kolb used the model, and his work became the foundation for additional work as well. Kolb states that to gain knowledge from both personal and environmental experience, the learner must have 4 abilities. 1, the learner must be willing to actively be involved in the experience. 2, the learner must be able to reflect on the experience. 3, the learner must possess and use analytical skills to conceptualize the experience. And finally, the learner must possess decision-making and problem-solving skills to use the new ideas gained from the experience, all built around the experiential learning model, and all a foundation of student media programs. So teachers need to gain experience teaching. For example, in our teaching programs, we do internships, we do observations, where we go out into the schools and we observe expert teachers and their craft. We do student teaching, where we work under the tutelage of a master teacher or an experienced teacher. There's continuing education. And then we have outside jobs. This research looks specifically at teachers that had outside jobs, either before they got into the classroom or while they were actually teaching. We know a few things about student media environment. And one thing that we know in general is that the lecture is not the strongest form of teaching. We talk, students listen, they take notes. And based on my experience, they're able to recite those notes, at least in the short term, very efficiently. But when it comes to applying that knowledge, they struggle. This is where the student media programs benefit. They have hands-on learning. Students go out into the field and take pictures. They go out into the field and shoot video, and they come back and produce shows that then get critiqued and evaluated. They go out into the field and interview people, write stories, they get published, and then they get constructive criticism based on their publications. So we work from the knowledge and apply that knowledge. Digby Jones, Director General of the Confederation of the British Industry, said, employers are looking for more than just technical skills and knowledge of a degree discipline. They particularly value skills such as communication, teamwork, and problem solving. Job applicants who can demonstrate that they have developed these skills will have a real advantage. This is true not only for the students who are in the student media and journalism programs, but for the teachers in those programs. The teachers in those programs who have exhibited a wide array of skills, from writing to editing, to photography, to videography, to social media and online web production, will have a leg up in the profession. For this study, I created an 18-question online survey modeled after Karl Grubaugh's 1999 study. He had, largely by mail, a response rate of 136. Online, I had a response rate of 158 in 2019, very comparable. One of the first findings was a response to how would you rate the general performance of the professional media? And the idea here was that the perceived performance of the media might be correlated with the teacher's willingness to work with such media professionals. And on a scale of 0 to 5, there was not much difference. They generally thought the media were just slightly above average on a scale of bad to good, 3.1 in 2000 and 3.4 in 2019. This varied slightly by completion of degree, although I didn't want to make too much of this because the response rate was relatively low, especially for people with doctorates. But people with a master's degree saw the media as performing the highest with 3.46. And then I looked at the programs that won the most awards of the respondents. Of the programs that won the most awards, that is probably the teachers with the most experience in terms of years served, or generally perceived as better teachers because their programs were higher performing, they saw the media as having a general performance of 3.66, higher than all of the groups and certainly higher than the average. Then I asked a question: did scholastic media advisors now teaching have professional experience before they began teaching? And the response in 2000, Karl's study, and in 2019 in my study, was basically the same, almost split 50-50. That yes, just slightly more than half had a professional media experience before they began teaching. Then when we drilled down on what kind of teaching, in Karl's study in 2019, 19.3% had part-time work during the year. So they were full-time teachers, most of them, often teaching 5 or 6 classes. And then they chose to work part-time during the year in addition. Some of them, 12.8%, worked part-time during the summer, and 7.1% worked full-time during the summer. Those numbers didn't change all that much in 20 years in my study, with 19.2% working part-time during the year and 3.9%, significantly less, working part-time, full-time during the summer. Teachers often made comments about how much they valued their summer and how it was getting shorter as the school year extends. So then I looked with the answer to the question: did any professional journalism experience teachers had, or experience they continue to have, improve their abilities or confidence in the classroom? Some of the respondents made comments such as, professional experience does provide valuable insight, one advisor from Nebraska said. An advisor from Illinois elaborated, my professional experience has definitely been an asset, both at the high school and the college level. It made me a better teacher simply by having confidence in my knowledge of the subject matter and to be able to divert from the text when it was appropriate based on my experience. It also made me a better teacher by enhancing my credibility with the students. Students believe learning from a, quote, real professional enhanced their experience and added value to the course. So in 2000, when Karl looked at the answer to this question, the level of impact on the profession was 4.54, very close to the highest, 5, significant. However, when we come to 2019, 20 years later, that level of impact dropped to 3.11. a pretty significant drop. Are you satisfied with the efforts of the professional press to partner with high school media programs? Only 1/3 said yes, 2/3 said no, and that was true 20 years ago and today. Of the advisors who advised media that won the profession's highest awards, even fewer, 24% said they were satisfied. So a few thoughts from teachers as this moves from a quantitative study into just a little bit of a qualitative study, taking again from the anonymous responses of the people that took the survey. While the instructors acknowledged the benefits of having professionals in the classroom and themselves working in a professional environment, scholastic media advisors noted real-world roadblocks. Here's a few quotes from some of the respondents. They, the professionals, do not reach out to us, and when we reach out to them, there's not much more than a field trip to tour the plant. Neither of us has much spare time to pursue this avenue, even though we all know it would be helpful. There isn't a lot of communication with professionals in scholastic journalism. The reality is what they do and what we do are so radically different. And finally, I wish they would take an interest in our student media programs. So here's a response from one of my students in a class last fall, as I encouraged the teachers in this program, when they got back to the classrooms in the fall, to involve professionals in the classroom. I wanted to see what happened. So here's some information from Laura Minerva, who was in the class. After your class, I continued taking pictures and reading about photography. I was also inspired to reach out to local photojournalists. One responded, John Starks from the Daily Herald at Arlington Heights, Illinois. I had John Starks join my class on Zoom. He was really good, actually. It's immediately apparent that he loves photography, so my students found his energy infectious, which was cool because he's a soft-smoking guy. As far as teaching, he shared his photos, mostly sports, and focused on small details. My journalism students are generally good listeners, so they were taking it all in. Karl, when he reflected back on his profession, and he just retired last year, said, this is a tough and challenging gig, but it turns out that if you give kids a genuine, real-world product they have to produce, and then you offer some thoughtful, caring, and informed guidance along the way, they'll often fall in love with what they're doing, and they'll hold you in fairly high esteem. And teachers that had more real-world experience felt more comfortable in the classroom and were able to train their students better. So here's a picture of Karl as he just retired. Karl is the author of the study, a study of professional experience of high school journalism advisors in 2000. That was the model for this one. And also author of the article, Working Professional Journalists Add Depth to the Classroom from 2001. So I close by saying, not having heard of it is not as good as having heard of it. Having heard of it is not as good as having seen it. Having seen it is not as good as knowing it. Knowing it is not as good as putting it into practice. Learning arrives at putting it into practice and then stops. Over the years, we've taken this and evolved it to suit our needs a little more succinctly. Tell me and I will listen. Teach me, I'll remember. Involve me, I'll learn. For journalism teachers and student media advisors who get involved in their profession, who go out and work with area newspapers, who bring professionals into their classroom, real learning takes place, not only for the students in the classroom, but for the instructors themselves. For the instructors who work part-time as copy editors, photographers, wedding photographers, and video journalists, the value is even more apparent in the classroom as they take those skills and then pass them along to their students. Again, my name is Bradley Wilson from Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. I appreciate your time and I look forward to hearing from you. You can certainly shoot me an email at bradley.wilson@msutexas.edu, and perhaps we'll run into each other in person at the next learning conference. Have a good day.